Dadperfectrevenge. I sat in my truck outside First National Bank on Morrison Street, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel. For the first time in 7 years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. Complete, total peace. I hadn't told Trevor I was here, hadn't told anybody. And for the first time in a very long time, that felt exactly right. My name is Carl Thompson. I'm 66 years old, and I'd just done something that was going to change everything. Let me back up and tell you how it started. How a man who worked as a nurse for 30 years, who raised his son right after his wife Patricia died, ended up sitting in a bank parking lot, having just closed every account that had his boy's name on it. It began with Diana Foster. That's my daughter-in-law, or was, depending on how you look at it now. Trevor brought her home in the fall of 2017. He was 34 then, working in digital marketing, making decent money. She was 30, all smiles and energy, talking about her wellness brand and how she was building her platform. I'll be honest, something felt off right from the start. Maybe it was 30 years of being a nurse, learning to read people, spotting trouble before it got worse. She was too polished, too quick with the compliments. But Trevor was happy, genuinely happy, for the first time since his divorce 3 years earlier. So I kept my mouth shut. They got married in Napa Valley, cost $18,000, and I paid 2/3 of it without being asked twice. Patricia and I never had that kind of money for a wedding, but times were different. I wanted Trevor to have what he wanted. The first couple years weren't too bad. They'd come over for Sunday dinner maybe twice a month. Diana would eat around whatever I cooked. No gluten, then no dairy, then some elimination diet I couldn't keep track of. I started buying different groceries, learning to cook differently. Seemed like the right thing to do. But then 2020 hit. Their lease was up right when everything shut down. They needed a place to stay until they found something permanent. I had the space, and honestly, I was glad for the company. The house had been too quiet since Patricia died. That's when things started changing. Small things at first. Diana worked from home, which meant she needed quiet space for her videos and calls. My workshop in the garage became her content studio. Just temporarily, she said. She'd set up lights and cameras, and suddenly I couldn't get to my workbench without asking permission. I'd been restoring a 1967 Camaro in there for 3 years. Patricia had always said it was my therapy after she got sick, but now the car was pushed into the corner, covered with Diana's equipment and ring lights. Just until we move out, she kept saying. They were supposed to move out in September. September came and went. The new place fell through, then another one. Then they decided to look for something bigger. Meanwhile, my garage stayed hers. My morning routine got disrupted too. For 15 years, since I retired, I'd wake up at 6 a.m., make coffee the way Patricia taught me, 2 scoops, no sugar, and sit in the garage with the door open, listening to the morning radio while I planned my day. It was my time, my space, but Diana's filming schedule meant she needed the garage quiet from 7 to 9 a.m., so I started taking my coffee upstairs to the bedroom. Just temporarily, I told myself, just while they were here. They finally moved out in February 2021, but the damage was done. Somehow I never moved back to my morning routine. The Camaro stayed covered. The garage felt different, like it wasn't quite mine anymore. Then the money requests started. Trevor called in March 2021. Diana's car needed new tires, all 4. The mechanic said they were unsafe. Could I help with $600? Of course I could. She was family now. July brought another call. They were short on the mortgage payment because of some paperwork delay. Just $1,800 to avoid a late fee. He'd pay me back as soon as things cleared up. October was Diana's business conference in Arizona, a real game changer for her brand, Trevor said. Registration, travel, hotel, $3,200. It was an investment in their future. I didn't keep a running total. Looking back, that was probably on purpose. If I'd added it up, I might have had to feel something I wasn't ready to feel yet. By the end of 2021, I'd loaned them over $15,000. None of it came back. Early 2022, Trevor asked if Diana could be added as an authorized user on one of my credit cards. Just for emergencies, he said. His credit had taken a hit during some refinancing mix-up. I trusted him. I'd raised him to be responsible. For the first few months, the charges were small: gas, groceries, a hardware store visit, normal stuff. I stopped checking the statements closely after that. Big mistake. The September statement showed a balance of $14,200. Restoration, hardware, $3,800. Some wellness retreat I'd never heard of, $4,500. Interior design consultation, $2,900. The rest was smaller charges I didn't recognize. I called Trevor that same day. He apologized, said they'd gotten carried away setting up Diana's home office. He'd pay it back by November for sure. November came and went. Then December. Then January. The balance kept growing with interest. Every month, Trevor had a new excuse. The holidays, unexpected expenses, money was tight with Diana's business. I started keeping a notebook then. Not to accuse anybody, just to keep track. Tires in March, mortgage help in July, Arizona conference in October, credit card balance that kept climbing. By mid-2023, the total was pushing $25,000. But here's what really got to me. It wasn't just the money, it was feeling like a stranger in my own house when they visited. Like I was just there to pay for stuff and cook dinner, but not really part of anything else. Last Christmas was the breaking point. They came over with Diana's parents and some of her business friends. I cooked all day, prime rib, the works. But during dinner, nobody asked me a single question about my life. Not one. I sat there listening to them talk about people I didn't know, places I'd never been, business deals I couldn't follow. When Diana needed more ice from the garage freezer, she didn't ask. She just told me to get it, like I was the help. I was washing dishes alone afterward when it hit me. When had I become furniture in my own house? That's when my friend Frank Sullivan started speaking up. Frank's my age, retired electrician, lives 2 streets over. We'd been meeting for coffee at Denny's every Friday morning for 5 years. He'd been watching this whole situation play out, and he wasn't shy about his opinions. "Carl," he said one Friday in March, "you're being played. That girl's got you figured out, and she's milking it for all it's worth." I tried to defend Trevor. "He's a good kid, Frank. He just wants to make her happy." "At your expense," Frank shot back. "And what happens when you run out of money to make her happy with?" I didn't want to hear it, but Frank kept pushing. He'd seen this before with his own brother-in-law. These types, they keep moving the goalpost. There's always going to be one more emergency, one more opportunity, one more thing they absolutely need. Then came the call that changed everything. April 2024. Trevor's voice had that careful tone he used when he was about to ask for something big. "Dad, it's Diana's 40th birthday next month. I want to do something really special." I knew where this was going. There's this Audi she's had her eye on, a Q7, fully loaded. I can handle the financing, but I need help with the down payment. Maybe $25,000? I sat in my kitchen, looking at that notebook full of numbers, and something just clicked. I'd had enough. "Trevor," I said, "you still owe me $24,000 from the credit card, plus all the other loans. When does it stop?" "This is different, Dad. This is for her birthday. I can't just get her something ordinary." "Maybe," I said, and I heard my own voice like it was coming from someone else. "She married the wrong guy if ordinary isn't good enough." He hung up on me. That's when I called Frank. Told him the whole story from beginning to end. He listened without interrupting, then said something I'll never forget. "Carl, you know what this is, don't you? This is elder financial abuse. There's laws about this stuff. Elder financial abuse." I'd heard the term at the hospital, but I never thought it applied to family. Frank convinced me to talk to a lawyer friend of his who specialized in this area. The lawyer, Patricia Mills, laid it out plain. "Mr. Thompson, based on what you're telling me, you have grounds for a civil claim. More importantly, you need to protect yourself financially before this gets worse." She explained how these situations typically escalate. The requests get bigger, the pressure gets stronger. They're counting on your love for your son to keep you from saying no. That hit home. Patricia. Mills was right. Every time Trevor asked for money, he framed it like saying no meant I didn't care about his happiness, his marriage, his future. I spent 2 weeks documenting everything. Every loan, every credit card charge, every promise to pay me back that never happened. I made copies of bank statements, credit card bills, text messages. Frank helped me organize it all like we were building a legal case, which we basically were. Then I made my decision. I wasn't going to give them another dime, and I was going to protect what I had left. I called the credit card company first, removed Diana as an authorized user, blocked the card, requested new numbers. The customer service rep said I was smart to do it. Turns out this happens a lot. Next, I went to my bank, closed the joint savings account I'd shared with Trevor since he was 18, moved $47,000 to a new account in my name only. It felt strange closing that account. It was the last financial connection to the little boy I'd raised, the teenager I'd taught to drive, the young man I'd been so proud of. But it was also the first step toward getting my self-respect back. I didn't tell Trevor what I'd done. I figured he'd find out soon enough when he tried to transfer money for that Audi down payment. 3 days later, my phone rang. Trevor's voice was tight, controlled. "Dad, something's wrong with the savings account. It says it's closed." "It is." I closed it Tuesday. Long silence. I could hear him processing, realizing this wasn't a bank error or a misunderstanding. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's my money, Trevor. It was always my money. And I'm not financing a $25,000 car for someone who's already spent $24,000 of my money without paying back a cent." The conversation got heated then. He accused me of trying to control his marriage, of being selfish, of not understanding what Diana needed to be happy. I let him talk himself out. Then I said something that surprised us both. "Son, I love you. I'll always have. But I should have said no a long time ago, and I didn't because I was scared of losing you. Turns out, trying to buy your love with money was losing you anyway, just in a different way." He came over that evening. We sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where he'd done homework while I cooked dinner, where we'd talked through his problems in high school, where I'd taught him to change a tire on the linoleum floor when it was raining outside. We talked for 3 hours, really talked. Not the careful conversations we'd been having for years, where neither of us said what we really meant. He admitted Diana had been pressuring him about the car for months, that she'd already picked it out, told her friends about it, made it sound like it was a done deal. He felt trapped between disappointing her and asking me for more money he knew he couldn't pay back. "I've been performing, Dad," he said finally, "for years, trying to give her this lifestyle I thought she needed, and every time, I got close to making it work. She wanted something bigger, something more." We talked about his mother then, how Patricia and I never had much money, but what we had was real, how we made decisions together, saved together, spent together, how nobody in our house ever felt like an ATM. "I know I screwed up," he said. "I know I took advantage. But, Dad, I don't know how to get out of this without losing everything." "What's everything?" I asked him. He thought about that for a long time. The house we can't really afford, the friends who only want to hang out when we're picking up the check, the marriage where I'm always one payment away from being a disappointment. When he put it like that, it didn't sound like much worth keeping. We didn't solve everything that night. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was talking to my son, not some stranger who looked like him and shared his name. 3 months later, Diana moved out. Trevor called to tell me, sounding tired but relieved. She said she needed someone who could match her ambitions, he told me. Someone who was going somewhere. "How do you feel about that?" I asked. "Honestly, like I can breathe again?" He sold the big house they'd been struggling to afford and rented a small apartment near his work. Started paying me back $300 a month. Not much, but consistent. More importantly, he started coming over on Sundays again, just him. So, here's what happened next. I moved the Camaro back to the center of the garage, cleared out all of Diana's leftover equipment, set my workbench back up the way I like it. Now, I'm out there every morning at 6 a.m. with my coffee and the radio, planning my day, working on that restoration. The car's almost finished now. Trevor's been helping on weekends, learning about engines, getting his hands dirty. He says it reminds him of being a kid, watching me fix things, learning that problems have solutions if you're patient and methodical. Last weekend, he asked me to teach him how to make Patricia's meatloaf recipe, the one she'd learned from her mother, written on a card in her careful handwriting. We spent the afternoon in the kitchen, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were family again. Real family, not the performance we'd been putting on. I keep that notebook in the kitchen drawer, the one with all the numbers. Not as evidence anymore, just as a reminder. A reminder that love isn't supposed to cost you your dignity. That being a good father doesn't mean saying yes to everything. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries and stick to them. The total came to $28,400 by the time it was all said and done. Trevor's paid back $3,600 so far. At this rate, it'll take him years to clear the debt. I don't mind. The consistency matters more than the speed. It's proof that something real changed, something that's going to stick. Frank stops by the garage sometimes when I'm working on the Camaro. He'll bring coffee and we'll talk about the engine, about retirement, about our kids. He never says I told you so, but I can see it in his eyes sometimes. He's proud of me for finally standing up. But he's also relieved it worked out without tearing the family apart completely. Last month, Trevor brought a girl over for dinner, Sarah, a teacher at the elementary school near his apartment. She ate my cooking without asking me to change anything. She asked about my nursing career, about Patricia, about the Camaro. She seemed genuinely interested in the answers. After dinner, while Trevor was loading the dishwasher, she came out to the garage where I was working. "He talks about you a lot," she said. "About how patient you were when he was growing up, how you taught him to work with his hands, how you always made him feel like he could figure things out." I wiped my hands on a shop rag. "He's a good man, just took him a while to remember that." She nodded. "He said you saved him, not just from her, but from himself." I thought about that after they left, about saving and being saved, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them, about how sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone fall down so they can learn to get back up. The garage door was open, and I could hear the neighbor's dog barking at something in the distance. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I didn't mind. I was exactly where I belonged, in my own space, on my own terms. People ask me if I regret it. Closing those accounts, cutting off the money, forcing the confrontation. The honest answer is no. I regret waiting so long. I regret all the years I spent shrinking myself down, trying to buy peace by giving up pieces of my self-respect. I'm 66 years old. I worked hard for 30 years, saved my money, raised my son the best I knew how. I deserve better than being treated like a bank account with legs. And somewhere under all that pressure to please his wife, my son deserved better too. Looking back, now, I can see the warning signs I missed. The way Diana would ask about my retirement savings at family dinners. How she'd mention expensive things she wanted, always followed by a casual comment about how generous I was. The way she'd redirect conversations whenever I talked about my own plans or interests. She was mapping out my finances like a surveyor mapping land. And I let her do it because I thought being a good father meant being an endless source of support, no matter what it cost me. Frank was right about one thing. These types always keep moving the goalpost. If I'd given her the $25,000 for the Audi, there would have been something else. A vacation house, maybe. Or startup money for her next business venture. Or fertility treatments so they could have the kind of kids who go to private schools and summer camps that cost more than I made in a month as a nurse. The pattern would have continued until there was nothing left, and then I would have become the problem. The tight-fisted old man who wouldn't help his family when they needed it most. I've talked to other men my age who went through similar situations. It's more common than you'd think. Adult children who never learned to live within their means, who see their parents' retirement savings as a backup plan. Spouses who marry into families for the financial security, not the love. There's this whole support group that meets at the community center on Tuesday nights, Elder Financial Abuse Recovery. Sounds clinical, but it's just a bunch of guys and women sitting in folding chairs, drinking coffee from paper cups, talking about how their kids or grandkids or in-laws cleaned them out. Some of the stories would break your heart. Martha, who's 78, gave her grandson $80,000 for a food truck business that never happened. The money went to his gambling debts instead. Bill, who's 71, refinanced his paid-off house 3 times to help his daughter's family keep up with their mortgage payments. Now, he's working part-time at Home Depot because he can't afford to retire. I started going to those meetings after everything settled down with Trevor and Diana, not because I needed help anymore, but because I wanted to help others avoid what I went through. You'd be surprised how many people think it can't happen to them, that their family is different. The group leader, a social worker named Jennifer, always says the same thing at the beginning of each meeting. Financial abuse works because it happens slowly, between people who love each other. The abuser doesn't start by asking for $50,000. They start by asking for $50, then $500, then $5,000. By the time you realize what's happening, you've already established a pattern of saying yes. That pattern is hard to break because it feels like breaking it means you don't love your family anymore. But Here's what I learned, and what I try to tell the other people in that group. Saying no to unreasonable requests doesn't mean you love someone less. Sometimes it means you love them more. Trevor needed to learn he couldn't spend his way to happiness. He needed to understand that a real marriage doesn't require one person to go into debt to impress the other. He needed to find out who he was when he wasn't performing some version of success he couldn't afford. None of that would have happened if I'd kept saying yes. The Camaro's finished now. Trevor and I took it for a drive last Sunday. Windows down, radio playing the oldies station. We drove out to the coast, stopped at a diner for lunch, talked about everything and nothing. He thanked me again for stopping the money train when I did. I know it was hard at the time, he said, but I think it saved my life. Not just my finances, my actual life. I was drowning, Dad, and I didn't even know it. We sat in that diner booth, eating pie and drinking coffee, and I thought about Patricia. How proud she would have been to see Trevor figuring things out, making better choices, building something real instead of just trying to look successful. She always said, the best gift you can give your children is teaching them to solve their own problems. I forgot that lesson for a while. Got caught up in thinking that love meant removing all obstacles from his path, making everything easy for him. But easy isn't always good. Sometimes struggle is what teaches you who you really are. The garage is mine again. Every morning, I'm out there with my coffee and my radio, tinkering with whatever project I'm working on. Sometimes it's car parts, sometimes it's furniture that needs fixing, sometimes it's helping neighbors with electrical problems or plumbing issues. My hands stay busy, my mind stays sharp, and my bank account stays in my control. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're the one always saying yes, always opening your wallet, always making excuses for why it's okay to be treated like, your only value is what you can provide, let me tell you something. You're worth more than that. Your money is yours. Your home is yours. Your dignity is yours. And anybody who truly loves you won't ask you to trade those things for their happiness. It took me 7 years to figure that out. Don't let it take you that long. Setting boundaries isn't mean. It's necessary. Teaching people how to treat you isn't selfish. It's survival. Trust me on this one. The peace you'll feel when you finally stand up for yourself, it's worth everything. And if they really love you, they'll still be there when the dust settles. The ones who aren't, well, that tells you everything you need to know about what you really meant to them in the first place. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their worst decisions, even when saying no breaks your heart. Real family relationships aren't built on transactions. If someone only values you for what you can give them financially, they never really valued you at all.